Free men you are. What will you do without freedom?
Proclaim liberty throughout all the land.
In one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. You gotta fight for your right. Can you dig it?
Bailing out states this entire last week. We're talking about sort of, propagating, using some of these heroes, these frontline defenders as sort of pawn pieces to get some of this legislation put through. Just call it the HEROS Act if you win. That's what they're doing. A $3 trillion proposal today. Said, if you're seeing this broadcast at the top, right up there, this is just a normal real news broadcast. We're just giving y'all some ways. Right now, man, I'm a little bit fed up personally. Shine wanted to come on here and do one final broadcast tonight too, just to let us vent some, give ourselves some opportunities just to get some of the stuff off our chest and push all to this rejectbailouts.com thing one more time. Because I was just saying to Shine before we came on here, bro, like, is anybody is this monopoly money we're playing with now? Is anybody taking these numbers seriously? It's like $6 trillion. We're just flippantly throwing around like it means nothing. Like literal monopoly money, bro. Like I'm beyond the point of concern now. I just don't know what to do with it. Rejectbailouts.com if you want to make your voice heard somehow. Sorry, go ahead though, Sean. Yeah, I don't know if I can hear you, but I can definitely hear. Let's see. I think I was able to hear myself just a second ago, so I'm not sure if they're being able to hear you. But yeah, but look, I mean, let me just tell you where we're at right now. Okay, I mean, you've seen these proposals come. We had the CARES Act come forward first. The CARES Act came through $2 trillion, 2.5 if you're adding up all the other things that we're getting to right now. This outrageous proposal. Look, man, I don't know if this is a wake-up call for Washington. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what we need at this point. Pledge at the top there, rejectbailouts.com. Sign that thing, man. Make your voice heard somehow. I don't care. This is a little bit about me asking y'all to sign this pledge. This is much more about us just giving an opportunity to be able to vent. And I've been having conversations with our buddies throughout the day to be able to vent about, like, what am I not seeing? What am I not getting? Is there such a thing as a wake-up call for Washington? I mean, every single American that's concerned about the future of our country. Look, I don't know if we need to take a pause here or what we need to do, but we need to be able to make an assessment of what we're about to do somehow. Adding another $3 trillion on top of the $3 trillion that has already been out the door. What? $6 trillion, bro? $6 trillion in what, a 3 or 4 month time?
You know what's crazy is it was only like $2 trillion 2 days ago or 3 days ago, and then we saw kind of the Democrats pull back. They didn't come back to the House. It was obviously because they were still kind of synthesizing information, I guess, figuring out all the different, I don't know, let's just be real about it. All the different special interest groups got in a line, and the Democratic Party was still I'm being mean. Am I being mean, Mr. Henry? Maybe I'm venting a little bit. I feel like they were getting all the special interest groups together and tallying up a list, and it went from $2 trillion to $3 trillion. But for me, I'm upset obviously about the price tag. But I think too is the people don't realize that money comes with strings. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm really concerned about a specific part of this. I'm not even going to dignify the name of what they're calling it, by the way. I'm going to call it the Bailout Act. The State Bailout Act, basically, is what it is. I'm concerned about that specific portion. Now, I'm sure there are other things that I don't like because on principle, but on a practical level, I'm worried about strings that could come to states if the federal government starts backing up their budgets. Because it's not like the bank doesn't have any strings when they give you a loan. It's not like if I lost my job and my car or something and, God forbid, I had to move in at my parents' house, that I could just do whatever I wanted. If I'm not able to support myself, someone else gets to tell me what to do. And that's what I'm worried about, because the federal government seems to tell everybody what to do all the time and are always looking for reasons to tell people what to do and how to live their lives. And it's hard to imagine giving them some kind of authority over state budgets and the amount of damage that could cause over time. And I'm worried about like a loss of sovereignty for our states. I mean, right now we do have kind of a highly polarized system. And I think something that lets a little bit of the pressure, like a pressure valve that releases pressure and keeps things from either getting violent or not being able to work together or things like that, is the fact that different states can manifest different values and things like that. Because if people in Georgia were living under the legislature in California, they would have rioted already. And vice versa. If the people in California were living under the legislature of Georgia, it wouldn't have worked out. It just wouldn't. Because I think part of the reason people don't riot, people don't get super to the point where we lose confidence in the system, people don't get that way because they have these geographical areas that are able to represent them at least a little bit better than they could be represented in another state, and we could lose something like that over time. And I think that's why I'm upset on a practical level and worried on a practical level.
Just to give some updates as to what's actually the meat, it's been proposed so far. I mean, honestly, we're just in proposal phase here, but what they're talking about is Democrats releasing the sprawling package. 1,800 pages, this piece of legislation is 1,800 pages, 875 billion of that $3 trillion tag. Let me say that again. 875 billion of that $3 trillion tag is currently allotted for cash for state and local governments. That's directly to the point that Sean was just making a second ago. 800, close to $1 trillion of the $3 trillion. Let's just call it like that. Is allotted for state and local governments. And what Democrat leaders are now saying is the centerpiece. That $875 billion for state and local governments is the centerpiece for Democrats for the fifth coronavirus relief package. It also includes $20 billion for tribal nations and U.S. territories. Now, they said they're going to go ahead and move forward on this $3 trillion package. We'll see what happens when it gets to the Senate. Republicans get their stance on it, if it even gets that far. Who knows? There's also $75 billion in there to ramp up coronavirus testing and contact tracing, an effort that both parties say will be crucial to reopening state economies. I don't know. That's a give or take thing there as far as I'm concerned.
Both parties are saying it like elected officials, but like I haven't heard anyone who's talked about it being like actually physically possible to do, like have enough tests to where if we had a bump again that you could contact trace and things like that. I mean, I think just thinking as a matter of practicality, we're not going to create 3 billion tests or 5 billion tests so that everybody in America can get tested every 10 minutes. We're just not going to do that.
Right.
Because otherwise, we'd have to start deciding in our society what things we want to take away. Because you can't just make all that stuff and keep making all the other stuff you're making. I don't know. But I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm so sorry.
No, it's a good point to bring up, man, because it's a major point of conflict that's going on right now, especially in the state of Tennessee. Look, man, nobody needs to repeat this story, but over the last couple of days, we've heard information, the health department sharing that information of positive tests with law enforcement. I mean, it's a major point. It's a major point of contention for a lot of people around here, right?
Well, so hey, an update on that story, Knoxville Mayor Indian Kincannon said they are stopping that program. So at least inside the city limits of Knoxville, they say they're not taking your info for the Knoxville police anymore. So that's
dude, and Kincannon coming out of left field with that one, dude. Like, no, don't get me wrong. I love to see it. I just did not expect Kincannon of all folks to make that stand.
Well, hey, do you really credit you got to credit the politician, I guess, but also you got to credit the people of Knoxville for being the kind of people India Kincannon would be scared to keep doing that program or see the would see the value in shutting the program down. And a lot of that has to do with the electorate of Knoxville. And letting your voice be known and be heard on this issue. Also, another update, I watched the Governor Lee press conference, and he didn't say it definitively, but this is like the mood, and you could definitely get the where his head's at. They said they're starting to move away from the reporting of this stuff and just giving police officers lots of PPE. Because the idea was they need to know if they're going to be in contact with the coronavirus. But if they just get a lot of training and lots of PPE, they don't need to know. They just can assume everybody has coronavirus, which from a practical standpoint is probably smarter, right? Because we're finding out that more people have been exposed than we thought. So it's probably smarter to do just assume everybody has coronavirus, wear your gloves, wear your mask, and try not to get sick, which is way better than violating everybody's civil rights, and it's more practical. So that's some fun updates, at least for the state of Tennessee. Be proud.
Well, and in Facebook,
your bias is showing Tennessee. That's what I'm saying.
If you're on Facebook or if you're on YouTube or Twitch or anywhere else that you're watching this right now, let us know your thoughts on this in particular. Let us know on the $3 trillion spending package that just came out, where you stand on that, what you think about it going forward. I'll be completely frank, man. I've had a lot of people that have just given up on the idea and just said like, well, they're going to pass $300 trillion anyways. I better get mine while it's happening. You're talking about another $1,200 stimulus check. And it's like, dude, I'm being slightly facetious what I'm saying here, but I'm sure that hypothetical has happened in a conversation somewhere with some of your friends today. Saying like, my conservative principles be darned. If it's going to be money that's going to be out there and passed anyways, I may as well get a small portion of it.
Is that the same money, though? Bailing out these state governments isn't the same thing or right as everybody getting $2,000 a month and going directly to people.
Well, see, that part of it is here, right? So it's $3 trillion that they're playing around here, man. And only $875 billion of that is bailing out the state and local governments. So the remaining like $2 trillion and change is going to a whole bunch of other stuff. $75 billion for amped up coronavirus testing. Legislation also includes what the Politico calls a slew of liberal priorities left out of previous bills. Talking $75 billion for mortgage relief, $100 billion in assistance for renters, $25 billion for U.S. Postal Service, $3.6 billion to shore up elections. I don't even know what that means. Here's what they're talking about. This would also include another round of $1,200 stimulus checks, just like it was last time before, except they cleaned up some spots previously. So it's $2,400 for a married family. The options for what applies as far as a child or a dependent, that portion has changed slightly now. So now it's not an age restriction anymore. It's just if they qualify as a dependent. Single filers are still $75,000 and below. Joint filers are still $150,000 and below. And get this, bro, like they're talking about, there's a section in here entitled Protecting Renters and Homeowners from Evictions and Foreclosures. 12 months for another year. This act would put a moratorium on evictions. Like for another year, you wouldn't be able to do any kind of evictions at all, man. So they're talking like relief for eviction. Like
I don't know if that's cool. Do you think that's cool that they do that doing that kind of thing on a federal level, saying nationwide no evictions for a year? Like I understand like hot spots and things like that. I mean, or even setting up a program in your state, even funded by the feds. I mean, I would understand that, a targeted program. But you know what I'm kind of getting tired of from the federal government? Well, I hate to say the federal government because it's not coming from the executive branch. It's coming from the House of Representatives. Is this idea that you can do something like that nationwide and it's practical or helpful? Is it helpful to say nationwide no one can do evictions? That's weird. I mean, targeted, temporary. This is what we need. We don't need blanket. I am feeling the pain for people who might have trouble finding housing because of various circumstances under COVID-19. I'm not saying I'm not. What I'm saying is, aren't there places where COVID-19 wouldn't have affected evictions or didn't affect the fact that someone didn't pay rent? Aren't there places in the country that aren't destitute right now? Could people use that as a perverse incentive in some kind of economic way and make bad choices that last for decades, could it kill our commercial realty market? I mean, kill it, dead, or basically sell it or give it to the federal government. That's what would be happening, right? Because they'd be the ones writing the checks to pay the electrician and the super and the plumber and the gardeners and the whatever and the cleaners. Because if no one's paying rent, the landowner's not paying it. These are these little things, and they're dressed up as I'm trying to help my neighbor stuff. That's what they're dressed up as. But what they really are under that covering is the federal government taking over means of production and property. And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here. They've admitted that's what they're trying to do during this crisis.
There's no hiding that at all.
So I'm just saying, when you say no evictions for 12 months, people go, oh, that's nice. Those people, they're suffering. Yes, they are suffering. But couldn't we have targeted programs for people to apply to and get help instead of a blanket? Hey, we're just going to assume that none of you guys can pay rent, even though only I'm not saying only is the wrong word. As a proportion of our population, it's like 20 million, 30 million, something like that. People have lost their jobs. So does that mean 360 million people don't have to pay rent? That's not a practical solution. And it's not taking everything into account. It's not taking in, things that can happen unexpectedly, things that you don't, unintended consequences. It doesn't take that into account. And I really don't think that these people are thinking about or even know about how like the economy works or how paying people works. And I don't know. I mean, like, I totally get rent relief. I get that. But do we really need a blanket policy for the whole everybody? Right? I mean, doesn't it make sense to just say, New York, you're allowed to, if you want to, tell people whatever, and even though they don't need that kind of permission. I don't know. It's like virtue signaling mixed with bad policy that it has obvious unintended consequences. And this isn't even a big part of the bill.
Right. No, I know.
This is a very small part of this bill.
Yeah.
I mean, me and you, Mr. Henry, we're going to have to spend days breaking this down.
Well, and see, that's the thing, man. It's like you start to understand now that it becomes obvious what Democrats are going here for is more of a negotiation tactic and or tool than anything else that they actually hope to be passed.
They want your property, and they want the means of production. They do not like property ownership, and that's what that would be. Not to mention the state bailout thing. I mean, anytime you say the government is the payer of last resort, they end up owning stuff. I don't know.
Well, Democrats, at least as far as Politico's reporting here, is saying that they're even acknowledging that this, quote, behemoth of a proposal, the summary alone is 90 pages. The bill itself is 1,800 pages. Nobody's reading all 1,800 of those pages, but at least the summary of what's allegedly in this thing is 90 pages long. They're saying that this legislation at this point is more of a, quote, talking point than what they expect to become actual law. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure if that helps you at all. So you start at $3 trillion, whittle yourself down to 2 or another 1.5 trillion. I don't know. And that apparently wasn't even good enough for some of these people. All right. I mean, for some of the Democrats, some Democrats were actually discouraged by that, saying that what they were originally wanting for, here it is from Politico again, before the measure was released, Pelosi had cautioned members on Tuesday's call that some would be, quote, disappointed by what's left out of the bill. It's like, what's in there already? Whatever, but what's left out of it? You're like, goodness gracious, dude. So what's left out of it? Pelosi said that she and her committee chairs had initially assembled $4 trillion. Dude, this is what I'm saying. When you're dealing with such staggering numbers of 3 trillion and 4 trillion, the 3 and the 4 doesn't make it seem all that far off from each other. It's like, well, yeah, what's another $1 trillion when you're talking 3? It's not that much. It's one extra, right? So that's what I'm saying. When Pelosi comes out and says that when they initially assembled $4 trillion is what they were asking for in their initial proposal, and they somehow whittled that down to $3 trillion, but we're forced to whittle that down. Let me put it this way. Last time I checked, dude, I think, and someone at Facebook can tell me if I'm wrong, definitely correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the total student loan debt accumulation for the entire country is like 1.2 trillion. Like 1.2 trillion. And again, I may be wrong.
Which is the highest amount of debt in any category ever, besides federal debt. It's the highest amount of debt in any category anywhere in the United States or in the world is United States federal student loan debt besides the federal government's debt.
And I don't mean to imply that you can just write this off as an apples-to-apples comparison, like Mr. Henry. Come on, a COVID-19 or bailouts or stimulus situation is not at all the same thing as student loan. Granted, that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is keep in your mind.
It's the same thing to these Democrats.
Well, sure.
It's the same thing to them, and they'll use this as fodder to say that's what they should do. Or anytime something comes up where they can get votes by spending money, They'll just say, remember when we did it for coronavirus? This is an emergency too. You know what I'm saying? They're going to say poverty is an emergency. We should do government food. Housing is an emergency. We should just build government housing everywhere. Environment is an emergency. We're going to spend $10 trillion, make a bunch of, power plants with fans and sunlight and stuff like that. And then they're going to close all, they could use this logic for anything going forward. That's why this is such a danger.
To your point, talking about forgiving student loan debt in particular, the CARES Act before, these names are coming up with the CARES, HEROS, whatever. That's the little name of the bills that were passed already. Those are little names of the way that they're cited in the legislation. That's how the stuff that you play off acronyms, and then you have to figure out the spin behind your acronym. If you message it properly, though, you can also understand what exactly they're doing, and you can see through the messaging behind it. CARES Act had that in there. Forbearance on student loan debt all the way up through fall of this year. Okay. Now, this act in particular, the one we're talking about now, that would put forbearance on private student loan debts all the way through September of 2021. Right. So it's just like push that on out another year and a half from now or something like that, bro. So it's like, yeah, they took care of a little bit of everything in there. And I get it. They're trying to get people back to work. But at the same time, bro, I just don't know. I kind of feel like I've lost my mind a little bit here, bro, until I read some of this. And I'll give you a chance to respond to this, Shine, too. I started to feel like I was losing my mind a little bit here this afternoon because Shine and I were working on this all this afternoon. We were trying to study on it. We were trying to do research on it. We were trying to get people, like I said before, sign that position at the top of this thing, rejectbailouts.com. And if you want to make your voice heard on this, if you disagree with what's going on, this simplest way, just hit that rejectbailouts.com, put in some simple information. That stuff goes directly to these legislators that are about to vote on this thing. Here's Governor Newsom, though. And in particular, read some of these responses. So he says, without federal support, states will be forced into making impossible decisions. Really? Well, these decisions were very possible for several other states in the United States.
It was easy to spend the money.
Now.
It was easy to spend it. It was easy to virtue signal and carry the debt. That was easy. Yeah. Okay.
And he says today, California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, Colorado, and our legislative leaders have joined together to ask the federal government for $1 trillion to protect our schools, public health, and public safety. Now, look, somebody did the math on this, and I didn't take the time to check and see if it was right. I frankly don't care because they did the math and said, like, the combined state budget of those 5 states alone doesn't even equal $1 trillion. So at least between those 5 states, they're asking more than what the state budget would be. Now, granted, a stimulus package to prop up unemployment for a prolonged period of time doesn't have much to do with a year-to-year state budget. I get that. But I started to lose my mind a little bit, Shine, because I was thinking, like, dude, we're just flippantly throwing around these massive numbers. And some mathematicians out there get when I say, like, $1 trillion. $1 trillion is such an astronomically large number. Like, it's hard to comprehend. Until you
$1 trillion seconds ago, right? Dinosaurs were walking the earth. That's a good one. $1 trillion seconds ago, dinosaurs were walking the earth. That's how big $1 trillion is. That's how big $1 trillion is. Look it up if I'm wrong. I don't do math. I'm a talker. But I do know, like, there's several great, fantastic. Even you can't even comprehend how much $1 billion is, to be perfectly honest. With a human brain, you can't even visualize it. But $1 trillion is 1,000 of those. But the whole point of Mr. Henry saying these people do not understand how long we'll be paying for this. I do want to point out $1 trillion is 1/3 of what they're asking for in this bill. So 4 states are asking for 1/3 of the money that our great-grandchildren will be paying off. I don't think that's fair. What, 4 states? 5 states?
5 states, yeah. Look, in our list, he didn't include any other states on this, so I assume he wasn't calculating for any other states other than these 5.
Yeah, Illinois is not even in here. And remember how much crap Illinois took for putting in $40 billion? Illinois only wanted 40. And we were talking smack about that last week. They say, hey, you know what's bigger than 40? 1,000 times that. Let's just be what? I don't know how to what is 40 billion minus $1 trillion? That's 960 billion. So they're like, let's just go up another 960 billion. That's incredible. The hubris.
And to your point before, man, think about what this will mean for the states of how much they will be indebted to federal government. And I mean that in a sense of not even just like, financially indebted. I'm talking like in a policy decision way of being indebted to him, in an ethical sense being indebted, in a sense of trying to, I mean, I don't know, man, of politics in general. It's a very political thing, not just a budget driven thing. But I started losing my mind a little bit this afternoon until I started reading some of these comments. I mean, this is the official account of the governor of California, admittedly not the most popular dude in the nation right now, but read some of these responses. Don't you dare at real Donald Trump. As a Californian, I've seen the side effects of their terrible need to spend, to let them suffer for their foolishness. I mean, I don't go that hardcore with it, but I get it. Look at this one. I thought California was a nation state, a little bit to the point you're making, Chen. Didn't we make our own decisions on marijuana legalization, sanctuary status, and have almost the highest state income tax in the United States? Somebody else said, yeah, right. Get it? How can we protect ourselves from you, Aunt Nasi? I'm not. These are literally just as they're coming along, right? I'm not manipulating this in any particular way. Someone just laughing hysterically, saying shouldn't have gone into deficit giving money to illegals buying booze for drugs for homeless. Again, I don't agree with any of this in thought line. I'm just saying,
well, that's a true statement. They do buy alcohol. They're buying alcohol, marijuana, and heroin for homeless people in San Francisco right now. And do you think all those homeless people who are doing all that heroin down there on Skid Row are able to survive off of what they beg? Do you think that's the thing? No. I mean, just go read what California has done. And I'm not disparaging homeless people. I mean, God only knows that we are called to help the least of these. But acting like they don't have the money. They've spent money. They've spent it. And this is not about costs they're going to incur in the future. This is about costs they've incurred up to this point. And they know that if they get loans to pay for this stuff, that they won't even be able to afford the interest payments without declaring bankruptcy only to or some kind of, we need a new word, right? Because states don't declare bankruptcy, but they need the courts to say your contracts are invalid and start from square one and prioritize what the state needs. That's what they need to do. That's what every state needs to do. I mean, even states who've made good decisions like the state of Tennessee, that's what we're going to have to do. That's what we're going to have to do, even though we have a rainy day fund. I think I saw a statistic that we lost like $600 million in sales tax revenue since this all fell through. And it's not like it's going to get better tomorrow. Everybody's going to have to prioritize. Welcome to reality. That's the way reality works. There's not enough things to keep everybody fat and happy unless everybody is producing exponential value all the time, which they're not. Some people are sick. Some people die. Some people are having a hard time. But the reality is that they have to make budgets. They have to live with them. And they haven't been able to live in that reality for 30 years, but reality is coming back. We say it on the show all the time.
Yeah, man. I was super pleased by these comments that I was seeing because again, it means that I'm not losing my mind, right? It means maybe there's some hope left to come from this stuff. Now, Jonathan did just say in Facebook a second ago that he's got a good idea that this is going to die in the Senate. I think he's a little bit on there. I'm not sure if it's going to die completely. Again, I'm slightly fearful that what might happen here is a negotiation tactic by the Democrats to start high on 3 or 4 trillion, and then, like I said before, settle back down to 2 or 1 trillion and get what they can type thing. But again, at the same time, dude, this is unprecedented times. Like completely unprecedented times. We may have a situation where the Senate just shuts it down entirely because that was the initial response from basically every Republican out there, President Trump included. They were just saying something, what I considered, bias aside, I consider this an extremely rational response. Here's the quote from the other article that I was pulling from, NBC article before. President Trump and Senate Republicans also objected to the Democrat proposal, saying that there hasn't been enough time since the $2 trillion CARES Act passed to determine whether new legislation is needed or necessary. And frankly speaking, dude, that is an extremely reasonable argument on its face. We just now entered like day 1. I'm talking actually in Tennessee, actual day 2 of full-on reopening the economy. Okay, other states haven't even gotten there yet, and we just passed the CARES Act like a month ago. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it's an outrageous thing to say, like, I don't know, man, here, hang on, before we just start flooding the economy with more money, more stimulus or something like that, can we pump the brakes just a little bit, right? Can we think about the possible ramifications of these pet projects that we're shoving in there? Because eventually we're going to have to pay for this somehow. Now, if we're not paying this back, fine. If we're not going to default on that debt, that's fine. I don't know what it's going to do with inflation. I don't pretend to understand the economics of that side, but I do know every economic expert that I've ever followed says it's probably not a great thing to consider. Right. So, I mean, shoot, dude, there may be a situation here where Republicans in the Senate say, thanks, but no thanks. We're going to stall for a hot minute. We're going to try and figure this out. We're going to see what the CARES Act actually does to the economy. We're going to see what reopening the economy can actually do to get people back to work again. And maybe a lot of those employees that you say lost jobs, maybe they're furloughed. Maybe some of those restaurants will open back up. Maybe stuff gets at least slightly semi back to normal. And then we can whittle that $3 trillion down to whatever is the absolute necessary that we have to do at that particular time. But I'll give you the last word here, son.
Well, I know how to get rid of $1 trillion. Drop the state bailouts.
Yeah. Right.
That cuts it down by a third. And maybe leave that up. That is such a big decision with long-ranging consequences that affect our union and how it operates that they should probably debate that on its own. I don't really think that you should shove money for nurses and teachers and police next to something that's going to change policy forever. You get what I'm saying, or has the potential to do so.
Yeah.
It's dishonest. It's unfair. But I mean, I don't know. We've even gone so far as to challenge motives and say that people who are proposing things are not being honest about their motives. And that is conjecture, to be fair. But I really do feel like this is the most glaring example of them taking advantage of a crisis. The them here is anybody who wants to take advantage of this crisis and remake America in their own image, in their own intellectual image of what the United States should be that they've fallen in love with, not what it actually is. And there's lots of people that are daydreaming right now, and a lot of them are very powerful people about the way they can make the world look like the way they want to look like. And I think you can see it riddled throughout this legislation, and we'll expose most of it as much as we can. But you need to get out there and read it. You need to contact your legislature. You need to look at this link that's in the description. I think it's in the description, right, Mr. Henry?
Yeah, it definitely is.
But if it's not there, rejectbailouts.com. Just go to rejectbailouts.com. It's specific. If you go there and read it, you can see it's specific to state bailouts. But I think Mr. Henry's right that there may not be a lot of debate. There may just be, we're not going to pass this. And I'll even move on from that little commercial, rejectbailouts.com, to say what I worry about or what I think might happen, Mr. Henry, is Republicans are posturing by saying we may not pass this. They're art of the dealing right now, right? They're saying this isn't good enough, come with a better deal.
Yeah.
Something that Republicans hasn't really gotten to the news much this week, but this is their main concern in this legislation. And after I tell you this, you'll know that we'll probably get some kind of legislation. They want to put a ban on suing businesses of getting coronavirus related lawsuits.
Liability.
Yeah.
Okay.
They want to get liability protection for businesses. So you can't go into Starbucks, you get coronavirus and you die, your family can't sue Starbucks. Something like that. I'm not the legislature. I'm not a lawyer, so don't quote me on any of this. But I heard Mitch McConnell. You can find, I don't remember where he was at on Sunday, but you can find a video from Sunday where he talks about it. Now, what if Democrats in the House get with Mitch McConnell and say, we're not doing that. We're not going to tell businesses they can't be sued. That is totally against our narrative. But here's the deal. Maybe we could do a compromise where everybody takes a poison pill. You give us these state bailouts that protect our largest blue state governments, and we'll give you your liability protection. That way our corporations win, our states win. You get to say you got something for your people, blah, blah, blah. That seems to be the way Washington, D.C. works, is we never get a compromise where everybody wins. We always get a compromise where everybody loses. That's what we always get. And I think that's more likely than Republicans saying we're not going to do anything. Because I can tell you right now, they want that liability protection as much, in my opinion. And I only say that because it's coming from the decision maker, Mitch McConnell, the guy who will be quarterbacking the negotiations for Republicans in the Senate. It's important to him, which means it's important. And I really feel like we'll end up with a poison pill. I really feel like we'll end up with state bailouts, liability protection, and then a bunch of little things for people in the House and Senate to say, I did something for my people, which will just end up costing billions and billions, if not trillions.
Yeah.
But we'll have more on the show tomorrow. Rejectbailouts.com, and I'll let you finish this out, Mr. Henry.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same way. We'll cut this here for tonight, coming back tomorrow morning, bright and early, same time as usual. Also been speaking to a few people around the community. Sean and I both have about just bringing more people on to make this more of a community-driven thing to do some morning slots for us. You've seen us do that a little bit recently with some of our folks, Josh Eckel and John Chandler and Daniel Herrera and Sherry Voluntary, some of the people you've seen come on the program. So stay tuned for a bunch of that stuff. We'll get people more involved than we ever have before. Rejectbailouts.com. Rejectbailouts.com. You can go there yourself or click it at the top of the description of this video, and you're going to say something there at the end, Sean? No? Good to go. Cool. Signing off right now. Real News in the Evening. We'll be back tomorrow morning. My name is Mr. Henry. David Sean Thompson over there. We'll see you tomorrow.